The following broadcast may contain explicit language and adult themes. Viewer discretion is advised. The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the hosts, talent, and guests, and do not reflect the opinions, views, and standards of Pyro Media Enterprises, affiliates, subsidiaries, or its members.
Well, hello. Happy Friday, Junior. Love Friday, Junior. Thursday is like, especially Thursday evening, top tier, 100% recommend, because it just gives you that feeling of, you know what, I am almost to the finish line. And that is the best feeling in the world. Have you ever crossed the finish line? I have. And it feels like Friday Junior. That's what it feels like. So I just want to just wish you a happy Thursday, happy Friday Junior. It is springtime. Oh, before I go into that, I'm Nicole of nicoledvick Live. It is springtime. Spring has sprung. The sun is shining. No more rain. It was supposed to rain today here in Los Angeles, but it didn't. So I was like, thank you. Well, actually, it's sprinkle, a little sprinkle, but it didn't like come down. So I was like, yes, so excited. Everything is okay in the universe. Kind. I had to light my Luxor Noir candle here to help calm my spirit. This is like the spa scent. So I felt, because there's a lot happening. So on the one hand, yes, I'm fine. Life is good. Everything's okay. I'm alive. The kid is alive. The house is here. The lights are on. But at the same time, in the universe, we got some problems. There's some weird-ish going on. And if you know anything about history like I do, very reminiscent of how life was 100 or so years ago. Stuff people are talking about today, people were writing about 100 years ago. I actually just saw a TikTok about how Black people live in the background of white people's lives. And I was like, W.E.B. Du Bois said that about 100 years ago, about this idea of double consciousness. But I'm going all over the place. And, you know me, I can do that really well. But let me just say this. In order for me to process everything that's happening, one of the things that I do is talk to my sister friends. And what better way to process this episode of nicoledvick Live than to bring on a sister friend? I'm excited to bring her on, and she will be joining me today. I've known her since, we have to think when she come on, we'll figure out when that was. And we're going to talk about some hot topics. So last week was National Public Health Week. This week is Black Maternal Health Week. So it's springtime. We're talking about health. And we're going to touch on some kind of current events, weave in some public health concepts, talk about what's right, what's wrong, what the hell is going on. But let's bring on my girl, because I can talk. So come on, Jameelah. Come on. Oh.
Hello.
Why I always be dancing? I don't
because it's music. That's the blackness in us, Even though
I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blacker than black, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all. And
yes, I mean, you're right. You're not lying. And y'all, listen. When she came on screen, I said, wait a minute, why I was finna wear the same sweater that you was finna wear? I'm in my closet, y'all, because listen, the smoke detectors in my house are hardwired to the electricity and their battery, and they be tripping. They just decide when they go beep, the little chirpy chirp, it don't matter. I put batteries in them, they be like, we don't care. And until I can figure out who to fix that, we in the closet right now.
I used to have that problem.
So what did you do? Did you just disconnect them? Again, a black response to a problem.
I mean, I put in other fire alarm systems with the batteries, because that way you can just take the batteries out if something, if it's going haywire. But those ones that are like hardwired, I don't know.
So y'all listening, if you are an electrician and you know, look, I ain't got no money right now, and you want to come and help a sister out, please, otherwise they just gonna be chirping because I don't know. All right, so how you been?
Child, like you said at the beginning, you said happy Friday Junior. I'm like, but what comes with Friday Junior is all of the stress from the rest of the week. So it's like excitement, but I'm tired, and not the type of tired that sleep, will help. And I think that's why I put on this yellow, just because I wanted to feel better, even though there's so much craziness in the world. I thought, well, maybe some yellow will make me feel a little bit, elevated.
Uplifted, happy.
Yeah.
I hear you. Now, this is Black Maternal Health Week. Did you know that?
I didn't know that, and I think that's super ironic, but let's get into it.
Now, what's ironic about it? Huh? What?
Because what's ironic about that is, why do we have this whole, week, right? We have a week for this, and it feels like, what have we done since that week has been, come about? Like, what are we doing? We're just going backwards. So I don't understand. We talked about some Black maternal, and yet we're still probably regressed to where we were before this whole thing was, brought about. And I guess I'm saying it's ironic because we're talking about these things, going on in the news, and it just feels like, what's the point of the week? What is the point? Is the point to be doing something, to be bringing attention to things? Because I feel like we just regress. Like you said, we back 100 years ago.
You back. And I always used to wonder what my great-grandparents and my grandparents must have felt like. Okay, well, now I know.
Exactly.
Because this is it. Stuff is happening and it don't make no sense. I think I had mentioned, I don't know if you saw a TikTok I did. I said, we are literally hustling backwards. There was this time frame where we actually saw improvements in the Black infant mortality rates and maternal mortality rates when the Civil Rights Act, and I'm even skipping ahead, but I have to say this, they were able in the research to say when the Civil Rights Act came into being in the 60s, they were able to see significant reductions in infant mortality and maternal mortality in Black folk. And not only for that generation, but the generations after. So to see now they're actually worse now tells me a whole bunch of different things, right? That we have regressed. The Civil Rights Act, some of those the progress made then has gone away. And that honestly, to me, that there is a concerted effort on purpose to undo, right? And we'll see when we talk about Tennessee, when we talk about Mississippi, like this shit is done on purpose. And it shouldn't be surprising to me, but it is. And I'm irritated and pissed off.
I think it's interesting because you're talking about, like, what will your grandparents, think of this time? And it's so interesting because I feel like back then you knew what you were getting. You knew what was in store. You knew if you went to that town, you knew what was happening. And I feel like even though there are very overt, ways of showing racism in healthcare and whatnot, or just social injustice, I feel like there are so many other covert ways of showing it. And that's really what affects us. Those little covert policies and legal things that people don't know about, how we get sort of just jacked up in the legal system. And I feel like that's the difference. We don't know. We don't know what we're walking into. We could be looking at Sally, and Sally is racist, but we don't know that, and I feel like back then you sort of knew. It wasn't a surprise. And I think that's what gets me, is like, now it's a surprise. You have no idea who you're talking to. You have no idea who your teacher is. You have no idea who your doctor is, who your judge is. Your judge could be a freaking KKK member and you would not know. And I just feel like there was always an awareness about that back then. Like, this is probably a racist. You know what I mean? Like, you just sort of come in with that vigilance. And I think now, because we have sort of let down our guard and our vigilance in that way, when we come across these things, you're just sort of like surprised, like, what? Because you don't expect it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's backtrack because we didn't introduce you fully. I mean, I introduced you, but you know. So you are a nurse.
I'm a nurse.
Are you still a public health nurse? You still got your public health certificate?
Oh, of course. Always.
Oh, y'all never let that go. Okay, so you're a public health nurse. You also have a doctorate degree.
Mm-hmm. I have a
PhD. PhD, yes. And you spent about close to about a decade in public health work. So you worked in that's how we met.
And I mean, I'm still involved in community health. I feel like community health, you know, is a portion of public health. You know, I still work in the school systems, which very interesting. A lot, you can tell a lot about what's going on in the community from what's going on in the schools. Yes. And we've known each other because you said you weren't sure. I think it's about 17 or 18 years now. Because my daughter is about to be 16.
And you didn't, and Madison wasn't around.
No.
Oh, Lord. But that's impossible because we are only 16 or 17 or
this is
true.
I mean, you know, this is true. I don't know what to say about that. We just, I just spit her out, you know.
Right. You know, I don't know. I don't know what happened. So back to maternal health, Black Maternal Health Week. So to answer some of your questions, I'm going to read this. This is held annually. It doesn't really say when it started, but it says it's held annually. It's a week-long campaign founded and led by the Black Mamas Matter Alliance. So it's Black-led, Black, you know, this is coming from our peoples to build awareness, activism, and community building to amplify the voices, perspectives, and lived experiences of Black mamas and birthing people. It's intentionally held during National Minority Health Month and begins on April 11th to join dozens of global organizations in marking this day as International Day for Maternal Health. There's a theme. Our bodies belong to us, restoring Black autonomy and joy in light of the steadily alarming rise of maternal mortality in the United States, which recent data shows has been exacerbated by the pandemic and amidst growing cases of clear neglect in care in hospital systems immediately after labor and delivery. It's a long sentence, child. I'm like, wait,
sounds like
but anyway,
it brought about by some Black mamas, basically.
Yes, and I like the theme.
When did they start this?
It don't say.
Oh, okay.
It just says held annually. Maybe I skipped that part, but the theme I like. Our bodies belong to us, restoring Black autonomy and joy, especially because, again, in my research, because, you know, I'm also working on my doctorate, I'm all up in this literature and this idea of, you know, owning the Black body, that, you know, the majority feels like, in some sense, ownership of us. I was reading about the Tuskegee syphilis experiment and why was that allowed to go on for as long as it did, all those decades. And one of the journal articles I read said something like it almost felt like the researchers owned the bodies of those Black men. Absolutely. Because how else could you do what you did?
I think that is the mindset, unfortunately. And I don't know how else to say that because I don't want to sound like a racist, but historically, white folks have felt like they are the superior culture and they are the ones who have the wherewithal and the knowledge and the intelligence, and they are the ones that should be leading in a certain way. And I say that because I do believe they feel like they have ownership over everything. Otherwise, what kind of mentality would go into a land and say, I'm taking this. I know y'all, you know, got it all nice and pretty, but we gonna take it because y'all don't know really what to do with it anyway. Y'all not that smart. So I feel like, it's funny because I was writing that in my notes as, you know, I was sort of reading these articles that we're discussing, and I was thinking, why do they feel like they know better than us? Like, even, you know, we're talking about right now maternal health, and one of the things that I have such a problem with is, why don't they hear me when I say what's going on with me? Why do they feel like they know better than I know about my own dang body? Like, that makes no sense to me. And I guess I'm so sick and tired. And again, this is where the tired comes in, of health professionals, because I'm a health professional too. And a lot of times I go in there, I don't tell them what I know and who I am. I just want to see what they're going to do. I want to see what they're going to tell me. And a lot of times I feel like, why do they think that they know better than I do? Even though you have education, you don't know what I'm going through. Like, you have no idea. That's why pain is subjective. That's why symptoms are subjective, because only I can tell you how I'm feeling. You can't tell me how I'm feeling. You have no idea. And I think I was really very irritated as I was thinking about this, just historically, even though that theme sounds great, our bodies belong to us, because it does. In reality, we get tossed around in the system quite often.
A lot.
And so it's a beautiful theme. I just wish that Black people as a whole had the infrastructure to support that theme.
Well, and to that point, I feel like we did and we have. But what happens to it? Black Wall Street. We do these things, and then next thing you know, somebody don't want it to exist and they burn it down and it's gone. Or eminent domain. Now your house is the 110 freeway or the 105 freeway now. Right. So it's like there's all these examples of where we have tried to carve out our own spaces, because we know what it means to carve out our own spaces and how important that is, and then only to have them go away. Something you also mentioned that I want to talk about too, and I have notes, but baby, we don't need look. we are already going organically on this. So I'm in these journal articles, and I'll say this: they tell you go for your doctorate degree, it will change your life, and I'm like, no, because you start digging, you have these thoughts and ideas about stuff, and then you start to read these published articles about the thing, and it's actually documented that it happened. So this one lady was like, the doulas and the midwives was a Black thing in the South. Most Black babies in the South back in the day were born at home. Doula come to your house, deliver that baby, go on their way. You give them a chicken or some eggs or whatever for payment, and you're good. But because the medical establishment, kind of to your point too, oh no, we can't have these people out here doing that to deliver these babies. This is dangerous. We need to make sure that these babies are born in hospitals. So they kind of made it hard for midwives and doulas to practice.
They regulated.
Yeah, the nurse, I'm gonna watch over you. You ain't doing it right. I'm gonna take your license away, or I'm gonna fine you all this money. So then the midwives and doulas was like, it ain't worth it no more. Forget it. And so Black women started to have their babies in hospitals. So you would say, oh, well, then that means their birth outcomes will be better. They weren't. Because those hospitals were segregated. Those hospitals were substandard. You would be in Chicago and it's only one hospital that would allow you to deliver your Black baby.
And
so
I think what's weird about that is healthcare started off in the home. So, the doctor came to your house, right? And I think especially with delivery, you were surrounded by family members in your bed, and the people would come to you. And the only reason that changed is because this whole institution of medicine got privatized, right? So healthcare got privatized, and now we got hospitals. And now that we have hospitals, we have to regulate. The problem is the people who were in the hospitals were generally white male doctors. So how does a white male doctor know how to help you during childbirth? He has no idea what it feels like. He has no experience in it whatsoever. And he can't really empathize with it, right?
Right.
There's no way for him to truly understand what that woman is feeling, what kind of pain she's going through, and what kind of emotional mindset she might be in at that point. So how do you treat all of those areas? You don't. You just treat this sort of procedure, essentially. You treat it with medicine. And I think that sort of was the big issue when they moved from sort of a holistic model dealing with everybody involved to just this particular white male doctor delivering your baby. And unfortunately, even though you would think because there's a doctor now that your outcomes would be better, they were terrible. They were terrible. I want to say somewhere like there was like 70% of like women were having complications during delivery and after birth once it got taken over by that pot. Yeah, it was so interesting. And now they had to regulate it for both because now they were like, oh, now we're in the hospitals and we have these doctors, but the outcomes are really poor. So now we have to regulate doctors. And now since we're regulating doctors, we got to regulate the midwives too.
Yep.
But the midwives already knew what they were doing. They weren't having outcomes. But because now, you know, this folk can come in here, we have to make sure they're equal, basically.
Right.
So
Right.
it's really interesting because and I know we'll probably talk more about this, but midwives, as you know, we don't really have midwives. You know, that was a program that I was actually interested in when I was going to nursing school, because there is a midwife program that is offered through nursing school. But there are so few nowadays that you can hardly like find one. And I want to say there's only like less than 10% of midwives actually functioning in this country. Doulas is a separate thing. We can talk about doulas separately, I guess, because they've become very important, as they were back in the day, but they've become almost even more so important in this day and age, where Black women's bodies, unfortunately, are not their own.
No, at all. We're going to stop right here and take a commercial break. And we got, we didn't need no script. We didn't need no outline.
Thank you so much.
All right, commercial break.
This episode is sponsored in part by Bullet and Flight Radio. Get ready to uplift your spirit with Bullet and Flight Radio, the world's leading progressive Christian radio station. Experience the vibrant fusion of gospel house music and a rich medley of inspiration from all musical genres that'll make your heart soar. Join their extraordinary lineup of today's trailblazers, visionaries, and voices that matter, all sharing their stories and wisdom. Stay plugged in around the clock as they broadcast unmissable content 24/7. Your go-to station for all things inspiring. Become a pilot today by visiting bulletandflightradio.com. Bullet and Flight Radio. Your story, our station.
And we're back. So we were talking about Black Maternal Health Week. You were talking about the difference between the midwives and doulas. Can you talk about that? Because I guess I thought they were interchangeable, but it sounds like they're not. Clarify.
They're not. So midwives are actually like formally trained, you know, in an academic program. So I could have been like a nurse anesthetist or a nurse midwife. Like you have to actually go through school to get that title. A doula, there is a program for a doula, but it's not as involved in that way. So a midwife can give, you know, medications and can do, you know, procedures and things like that. They're a midwife, like they're delivering the baby. A doula is more, and there's different varying degrees of doulas, but for the most part, it is not as intense of a academic base, I want to say. That does not mean that they are in any way not as knowledgeable, because I believe that they are, but I think their function is different. You know, they are there to support, they're there to be there for that mother. You know, a midwife is delivering that baby. Doula is sort of just a
like
supplement.
Advocate, like
exactly.
Okay.
And so the education is very different. Sometimes it's just sort of experience. They've been doing this a long time. They may also have like a program that they went to. Erykah Badu, I believe, just became like a doula or something like that. So I think their goal is very different. They're just sort of like, I'm here for the mom, like what she needs, rubbing her back, encouraging her, advocating for her, as you said. And so that's really the difference. And that's one of the reasons why a doula has become so much more important in African-American communities, because actually your outcomes are so much better when you have a doula. And I think that kind of sucks, because you as a pregnant woman alone, or you and your spouse or partner, whomever, like the two of you or just you by yourself isn't enough. And that feels that feels sad to me. Like me telling you that I'm in pain, or me telling you something is wrong, isn't enough. I have to have another person that I've hired to come with me, just in case I'm tired, just in case I doze off. I have this person over here that's, going to advocate for me and say, no, you guys need to check this. No, you need to, and I just feel like that's so unfortunate.
Wow. It's so much in my head right now. I'm like, one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about, and I know this is going to sound horrible, but it's really something that I've been thinking about. Most people are excited about eventually becoming a grandmother someday. Oh, I'm going to have grandkids. I'm going to spoil my grandbabies. Do you know, in the back of my head, I'm absolutely horrified. Because
this conversation,
is she going to come out okay? Is the baby going to come out okay? Is she going to come back? Because there's so many Black women that go into the hospital to have their baby that do not come back home. There was a woman at Centinela Hospital, what is her name? April Valentine, that had her baby. I think it was her 5th child. Or is this a different case? It's been so many. I'm getting them all confused.
I'm not sure. I didn't know. I know that wasn't her first.
Right. Oh, no, I think April, this was her first baby, but there was another woman that recently died who was having her last baby. It was like, this the last one. Yes. And she died. But then April Valentine, I believe this was her first child. She had the baby and she was with her partner, and they were trying to tell them her legs, she couldn't move her legs or something was going on. And then she wasn't there. She was gone.
And we still don't know what happened. Like, we still don't understand what were the events that led to her death. It's still kind of unclear, because with some things they can say, well, she bled out after this thing happened, but I'm still unclear. And as I was reading, I was reading one article that was by her. It was an essay based on a conversation with her cousin. And I think one of the unfortunate things, before I jump into that, you mentioned about your own daughter, like becoming a grandmother. And what I think about that statement is how unfortunate that is for us to have that as part of our conversation, instead of just thinking pure joy. Because I can tell you, when my husband and I were talking about, having a kid early in our marriage, this was part of the conversation, along with, what if it's a little Black boy? Like, which is a totally different conversation.
Right.
In general, having a baby, he was very worried about me not coming home alive. He's like, I don't want to have to make a choice between you and our child. And it really hindered him from even considering having kids. So I think that part of that equation, I feel like this is something that Black people have to do. And so when we talk about being tired, it's really being tired from the weight of things that I think a lot of people don't have to think about. I don't think, a white woman is concerned about making it out of the hospital alive after having a baby. Like, that's a real concern. Or is the baby going to be a boy? That's another concern, So I think that in it of itself is such a sad situation, that my thought, instead of, you're going to have a baby, and joy and happiness and, nervous, but still like life. Right. But we have to consider life and what that means for us, because life does not always come for us with freedom or health or wealth or any of those things that you sort of feel when you hear that word.
It's crazy. And then I also think about the trauma. So you are pregnant. You have this baby, the baby's fine, you're passed away. There's some sort of, I don't know what you call that, but that child is now sort of disadvantaged And of course, I don't want to make it sound like I know I'm probably not saying that right, but you understand what that trauma is, right?
Yeah,
That
they're absorbing a pain and a trauma that I don't think can
they
completely
even
be understood.
understand. Yeah.
And I think they feel it. I think I mean, I don't want to say funny, but it's interesting that you say that because, I worked, so my background is in pediatric nursing. So I used to work in the NICU, which is the neonatal intensive care unit, and the pediatric intensive care unit. And I can tell you, we had babies that were being given up. And I swear to you, it's like they knew that they were not wanted because they did not thrive. It took so much effort to get them to feed, to eat, to just want to survive. And they feel it. They know it. It's a weird knowing that you wouldn't think that a newborn, is aware of. But there is some unconscious awareness that happens, and we had so many of those failure to thrive kids because, I don't want to say because, but when they were being given up or, put up for adoption. It was very crazy. So I can't imagine that there isn't some type of trauma or pain that exists in a child when their mother is taken from them at the exact time they're born,
Yeah, that's wild. And it just, again, I'll say this and we'll move to congenital syphilis, which is another crazy thing. It just feels like it's another way that these systems, and I talk about this a lot, that these systems in American society are definitely, I was going to say are not working, but I have to always remind myself they are working as they were designed.
Yes.
And that purposeful sort of push down of Black, brown, and other people of color, and that uplift of white people is crazy. It's all planned, all intentional. It's like well-oiled machine, 400-year-old machine working like brand new. Absolutely. It's crazy. All right, we're gonna talk about congenital syphilis, and then the last thing we'll talk about is Tennessee, because Tennessee was like, what? And it's funny that these all Southerners, I'm like, what's going on in the South? But I don't know why I'm surprised. So I was scrolling, probably LinkedIn. I don't know. A lot of stuff I find on LinkedIn is quite interesting. But anyway, I saw it and said, what the hell is going on? Mississippi is leading the country in syphilis cases, resulting in a tragic uptick of newborns, risking death from the disease across the state. Mississippi has had more than a 900% increase in babies born with syphilis, which is, and I know, is a sexually transmitted disease, in the 6 years ending in 2021. So 2021, going back 6 years, syphilis can cause miscarriage, death. Surviving children born with the disease can have major malformations, lifelong complications. The CDC reported preliminary data that 2,677 babies nationwide born with congenital syphilis in 2021. It was the highest number reported in 1 year since 1994. And case counts have been rising steadily since 2013. So what the hell is going on in Mississippi with congenital? What's going on?
When I hear that, all I can think of is somebody don't give a damn. Like that's literally what I hear when I read that, because it just doesn't make any sense to me. It said it was a 900% increase, and nobody did anything. When it got to 50%, somebody should have did something. When it got to 100%, somebody should have intervened. How did we get to 900% increase? And we're still like, yeah, I don't know what's going on. No, you know what's going on. Like, obviously there's a problem, but when I was reading about that, there were so many things, like just broken systems there that just, it felt like the people who used those systems, they were just kind of like, sorry, you're out of luck. And they closed, I think, public health departments out there were closed. I feel like they had no access to care. There was like one doctor, one OB in the county. There were issues with like getting appointments. I mean, stuff like that should not be a concern when you're pregnant. Like, I don't know what they needed to do, but why is there just one doctor? Where's the recruitment? Can we find some other things that we could do? They can go see a nurse practitioner. Like, why?
Yeah.
There's so many things. And why are they closing the public health departments when it seemed like they were needed most? So there's just so many broken things happening in that whole situation. It's very frustrating to read that.
So one of the things on top of everything you said is most states require syphilis screenings in pregnancy by law. Mississippi is one of 6 states that does not.
Yeah. They actually, in light of this, and I think because of all the outrage, yesterday actually they did an emergency order.
Good.
So that they could do these screenings. And the order only lasts for 120 days. But basically, they need to be testing for syphilis in the first trimester, or at least the first appointment, and again, the third trimester.
Yeah.
And I guess, this article really made me like wonder, why would they not test? Like, why would they not screen? Like, I don't even understand that. If there's like majority of the states are doing it, why are these other states opting out? What's the reason? And can I tell you, I did not find one at all. I looked and looked and looked to see why would some states not do it? Is it financial? Is it like the stigma? Like, what is it?
Because it really doesn't make any sense, especially when there's a cure for syphilis, which we all know for many reasons is born on the backs of Black people anyway, right?
Absolutely.
Like, we have this interesting relationship with syphilis. The public health field institution has in a medical field with Black people and syphilis. I don't know what it is. They decided it was some sort of a genetic default. I don't know what it was, but they just had this weird thing with this, but it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's I think it's weird because syphilis, like of all STDs, like you could have said gonorrhea and I may not have been as shook. But you say syphilis, and it's such a highly stigmatized, STD at this point. It's kind of odd that why would you let syphilis of all STDs go unchecked? Because, there are symptoms with syphilis for the most part. And you would feel like because there was this stigma and there was this sort of obviously racial bias in these studies and harm actually done, why would they allow that to happen in their state?
The more I think about it, well, Mississippi is Mississippi. First of all, so if they feel like syphilis is a Black person's problem, which again, literally in the literature, as I'm doing my research, I find an article in the Journal of the American Medical Association from like 1943 that is titled "Syphilis, a Negro Problem." When you decide that that's a Black, that's them over there. No, you're not.
Right, absolutely.
But why would you mean
that right there? What you just said is a through line in medicine, because if you aren't able to treat this disease or disorder for what it is instead of looking at the person, then you really aren't able to do your job. Because if in a medical book, if you feel like there's a difference between a white pregnant woman and a Black pregnant woman, you already have an issue. Like, you already have a problem. It's just a woman having a baby, and you need to be dealing with that. So if I'm saying a white person with syphilis and a Black person with syphilis, if I already have a difference in my thoughts of how to treat them, that's already a problem. And I feel like, unfortunately, and as a health professional, I'm saying this with a lot of caution, but the medicine was built on sort of these biases, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And those have never gotten corrected. So if you go to medical school even today, that some of these kids are still being taught the same biases that they were being taught hundreds of years ago. Why is there still not Black pictures in the dang medical books?
Absolutely. They are still taught that we feel less pain. Absolutely. Literally, one of my arguments in chapter 2 of my dissertation is that there are, first of all, that public health as an institution is anti-Black, first of all, because I'm like, this is be clear. But I also say, just like all the other institutions, urban planning, healthcare, education, all of them are built on a system of white supremacy and anti-Blackness. Every single one. And that's why we're in the situation we are in today. That's why it's the 900% increase in congenital syphilis, because people in Mississippi say that's a Negro problem. That syphilis thing, that's them dirty people with the dirty behaviors.
Yeah. How do you get somebody to care about your concerns when they don't even see you as a person? Like, how do you do that? How do you get somebody to look at you as a human? Right. I don't understand that, because if you believe that I feel pain in I guess less than the average person. I don't need pain medication like somebody else would. How do I actually tell you and get it across to you, no, I'm really in
No.
pain?
Yeah.
I don't understand. How does your knowledge of your, medical book trump the actual person who's telling you what's going on?
It's a mess. It's a hot mess.
But this is why people say, Black people were doing better when we were in our own community.
I know.
I don't mean that in any particular way, but I've heard conversations of older Black people who say we were doing better because we had people who looked like us who were taking care of us.
The Black doctor, the Black dentist, the Black whoever, the mayor, whatever. And like you said, it's not even to be racist, but the literature is like, it's not that we just even saying this to be saying it. It's documented.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. Girl, we done ran out of time. We ain't even got to Tennessee, but it was funny. What I will say about Tennessee is, my family is actually from Tennessee on my mother's side. That's where they're from. And I'm like, now I know why y'all left, because it's a hot mess. But there were 3 representatives that kind of did a protest because they were really concerned about gun control, want to help to save the kids, and they were sort of expelled from the House of Representatives. 2 of them were Black, 1 of them was a white woman. The 2 Black guys got expelled. White woman, she was saved by 1 vote. That's why she didn't get expelled. And I was like, interesting. Anyway, they were reinstated. But I think the reason I wanted to bring Tennessee up was to really trying to bring that link between the importance of policy in public health, in healthcare, and that in the case of Black people, that you hear Black people say, or even any person say, "Oh, I don't like politics. I don't like getting into that political stuff." I was talking to Alonzo, and he said, "But maybe everything we do is political. Our existence is political. So you can't afford not to be, because of things like this that happen when we're trying to push back, and we get this pushback from our pushback." I don't know. I don't know if you got any closing thoughts on any of this, and then we got to wrap it up because I'm getting the signal.
What I was, it's so many things I want to say, but when you were talking about politics, because I'm one of those people who I don't necessarily enjoy talking about politics with people just because it can become so divisive. But I feel like what Alonzo said was, very important. Like, don't think about it as politics. Think about it as surviving life and what you want the quality of life to be for your people, because that's really what it's about. So when we go out here and we vote, and we go out here and we look at these, laws and, policies and things like that, what do you want that to look like for you, for your children, for people that look like you, whatever that is? Because let's just take the word politics out of it, because I feel like that word is such a trigger word, politics. I'm just talking about surviving. I'm just talking about, how do I want to live? So if you're going to move into a house, how do you want that house designed? Okay. Yeah. So if you want to live in this country, how do you want the country to look? That's what I'm talking about.
Point blank, period. I think that's a perfect way to end this episode. Thank you, Dr. Powell. I think we need a part 2 of this, honestly, because we didn't, there's so many other things.
You are right. I think you're right.
We might have you back, girl.
Yes, it's a lot going on. I feel heavy on my spirit, but I feel like people need to know.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out and listening to us this week. Don't forget, you can catch me on all my social medias. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. TikTok is the realest me, though. I'm going to be talking about all the things on TikTok. If you want to see who I am as a person, TikTok is it. You can also pick up copies of my book. I have 2 books, baby. I done wrote 2 of them. Probably going to be writing a 3rd one pretty soon. Pushing through, finding the light in every lesson, and push through 52 weeks of light in tough times. Visit my website, www.nicoledvick.com, where you can find all the things about me, how to contact me. I do emceeing of events. I do keynote speaking, all things. So hire me, pay me, and I'll be a doctor soon too. So I'm gonna be real official and stuff. But thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Powell, again, and I will see everybody next week.
Bye. Bye.
If you enjoyed this content, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to Pyro Media Network's YouTube channel for more awesome content. Plus, don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss when we go live or upload new videos. Visit pyromedianetwork.com today, not just to check out our incredible roster of talented creatives, but also to gain access to exclusive bonus material available only to our Pyro fam. Show your support for this Black-owned indie network by donating today. Help us keep igniting brands everywhere.